Andrew Green here, Technical Director, Racing Point Formula One team.
I will start, Andrew, by asking you where it all began. How did you start?
As you can imagine, it was a long, long time ago. And I suppose, teenager years, watching Grand Prix on the television, always being interested in motorsport and cars of some description. Engineering was the background that I'd chosen college-wise. To be honest, physics was always a big subject for me. So I was always interested in how things work and that sort of aspect. So college was a mechanical engineering degree with no real view of how I would get into motorsport at that stage, but I thought it was it was something that I was just interested in at the time, and that's just, let's be honest, it's always good to do something that you enjoy and you're interested in. So that was the reason behind it. On finishing the college degree, it was really a little bit of happenstance with respect to my other passion at the time, which was cricket. And I used to play a lot of cricket, village cricket. And one of the team members was a guy called Rory Byrne. And and at the time he was technical director at Benetton Formula One team. And we used to open the bowling together. And we were just chatting on the side of the cricket pitch one day. And I mentioned my interest in Formula One and how do you go about getting into it. And he turned around me and he said, "Look," he said, you got to be honest with yourself and offer yourself for nothing. It's the only way to get your foot in the door is to really offer your services for zero money." I thought, okay, that's a good strategy. So went home that weekend, wrote off to, because this is in the days of writing letters. You realise there's no emails going on here. Wrote off to every technical director, every Formula One team, every motorsport manufacturer that was in the country. Took all weekend and then sat and waited. And then a few weeks later, I got a return from Adrian Reynard at Reynard Motorsport in Bicester. And he's quite a savvy businessman and looked at the opportunity of employing someone for zero. And he thought that was quite an opportunity. And I started with Adrian probably a couple of weeks later, and literally for no money at all. And that's actually, I was the first student intern in what was for many years a route for up and coming engineers into motorsport. And I look now around our office and up and down the pit lane, and there's half a dozen members who have gone through that route to get into the same position, into Formula One. So that's how it all started. I started with Adrian. I worked on the Formula 3000 cars in the design office. Basically started off making tea like you do. It was all drawing boards and pencils and pens at the time. And I worked with Malcolm Osler on the design side. And then with Gary Anderson, who started probably a few months later, and he was working on the Formula 3000 team. And he was a good friend of Eddie Jordan's. And at that time, Eddie Jordan was looking to start a new Formula One team, and he had asked Gary to help him. And in turn, Gary asked myself and Mark Smith at the time, "Do you want to come and start up a new Formula One team up in Silverstone? It'll just be the three of us." And what do you say? You don't get those sort of offers every day. So it was very difficult to refuse. So unfortunately, I had to say goodbye to Adrian, who wasn't very happy at the time, I have to say. But half of his drawing office just walked out with Gary.
Oh no!
So he wasn't very happy with that. And then we all moved up to Silverstone and started just the three of us on the first Jordan Formula One car. We did everything between the three of us. It was car design, wind tunnel model design, and wind tunnel testing. So if we were designing during the week, we were wind tunnel testing down in Southampton at the weekends. It was full on, but we were young and had energy, so it was we were just lapping it up at the time. We didn't realize really what we got ourselves into, what we were doing. It was great fun. And I won a heck of a learning curve, to be honest, because we had the opportunity. We didn't really realize how precious this opportunity was at the time, that we were actually working on every aspect of the car, right at the beginning of concept, right to the end to running on track.
I was just going to say, I'm assuming that nowadays that would be impossible to gain that experience.
Absolutely, not even, nowhere near. It hasn't been possible for years to be able to do that sort of work. To be involved in everything from right from the very beginning of concept work right through to running it at the track. I mean, if we weren't designing or wind tunnel testing, we were racing, we were engineering at the trackside, and engineering wasn't just engineering the car, performance engineering or strategy. It was everything. We were just involved with everything there was to do with the Formula One car at that stage. So the grounding that we had was just incredible. You look back on it and think that never ever happen again, and it hasn't happened for probably a few decades. The teams are way too big now. The cars are way too complex for any one person to wear more than one hat. We were wearing multiple hats at the time, and now we can't even wear two hats. It's impossible. You're dividing the hats up even further now. There is no race engineering, no race engineer. It's race engineer, performance engineer, and then all the assistants back at the factory supporting them. And that single job has now turned into 6 people. That's just one aspect of it. And suspension design. I was working on the whole of the suspension design. I mean, now we have 12 people working on suspension design. Mark was on chassis and gearbox. I mean, that's chassis and gearbox. That's 30 people at least. So it's that sort of magnitude difference to where we are now to where we were back then.
Where would you say the opportunities are now for people who maybe they know they wanting to go into engineering, but they don't know exactly which part of it? Are there still opportunities outside of Formula One for people to try lots of different things?
Yes, and there is, but you have to have an understanding that you won't be able to do it all. Specialization is the real key. We're looking for experts in their field, and there are lots of different fields in Formula One, from the design side, mechanical design side, to the composite. So you've got metallic design, you've got composite design, all the way up to vehicle dynamics. Race engineering, trackside support, strategy. I mean, strategy is a whole new realm of F1 that didn't exist really back in my day. It was you went with your gut instinct during the race, and now the strategy analysis that goes on is just immense. I mean, a lot of that comes down through Monte Carlo betting software, and it's all about it's about probability. So you've got areas there. Then you get into the more technical side, which is the cars are aerodynamic vehicles, really. So then you're into the aerodynamics and fluid dynamics, which is a huge part of our development. That can then be split up into aerodynamic design or CFD development. So we test in the wind tunnel, or we test virtually in CFD. So you've got aspects of within aero design that you can split up into. There's a lot of branches, and you can come at it from many different angles. You like I said, you can come at from strategy. You can come at it from, we've had people from the city come in who work on stock exchange software and work on strategy, and then you can come from people who design boats to coming into the aerodynamic side, because it's fluid dynamics, aerodynamics it's very similar. So there's lots of different routes in, and even the race engineering track side you can come in from a completely different angle there. It doesn't have to be a college-based entrance in that respect. We're looking for more hands-on. We're looking for people who understand the racing environment, the trackside environment, which is very different to the factory environment. So someone who has a background in the lower formulae, or it's like formula student, should we say? That's a way in to the trackside vehicle dynamics aspect of the business, without having to go through, necessarily having to go through a college degree. There are lots and lots of different routes in, and we look at them all.
I think that would be heartening for a lot of people who are listening to this, who are looking for ways in, who maybe didn't work out exactly what they wanted to do when they were doing GCSEs and A levels, and there's still a hope for people, isn't there? Is it ever too late to want to try and get into some sort of, working within an F1 team?
No, never too late, for sure. We're always looking for good, smart people who fit in well in a team. The bottom line is we're a Formula One team, and it's all about the collective. It's not about the individuals, and you can have the smartest people in the world come and join you, but if they don't integrate into the team, they're actually, they're a hindrance rather than a help. A lot of it is about the personality, and it's having a fit. To be able to fit into the team is having a good understanding of what the team is about, and then just being able to apply it and move forward, and always forward thinking. What we're doing now isn't good enough. How can we do it better? That's what we're striving every day. Ultimately, is to make the car go faster every time it runs. It makes it so the mentality of thinking is, how do I do better? How can I make this better? How can I make this process better? How can I make that process slicker? So it's that sort of thinking that we're looking for, and that can come from anywhere. And like I say, it's like you say, it's never too late to think about it, and to try and handle it. Who knows? We're looking for a passion to want to strive forward. It's a dedication as well. We don't work normal hours. Sometimes we have to ask for really silly hours, but we try and reward back again. So it's not, if you're interested in in the regular 9 to 5, then perhaps some of the areas of the team won't suit you. But there are areas that do are a bit more regular. But like I said, there's lots of areas, and we're open all the time. So looking for good people.
Obviously, you've had a few, as you say, different roles throughout your time in the sport. But What do you think the greatest thing is about working in Formula One?
The greatest is also linked to the worst. You get tested every race weekend, really. Your performance is tested in front of the world every weekend. And I think that's what makes the job such a thrill, is because everyone's here is trying to do the best they possibly can, and we don't always have the same resource as the people that we're competing with, and that we accept that, and we don't let that hold us back. We use it to our advantage, and that's part of the fuel that burns in our belly, is trying to beat the people that we shouldn't. And when we do, that is the biggest thrill of all. Because someone told me a long time ago, he said, at the end of a Grand Prix, there are always two people who are happy. One is the person who won it, and two is the person who beat someone they shouldn't. And we like to think of ourselves as, if we're not going to win it, then at least be beating people we shouldn't. And that's a real thrill when you do that. And I think we've been doing that quite well over the last few years.
You certainly have. Two final questions. What was your best day of your career so far? And I know it's been a very long career, but...
Thank you, Jen. You could have given me warning on that one.
Sorry. It's a tough one, I know.
Best day, I think I have to go back a long time. I think it would have to be the first season in Formula One. I think when when the cars came home at the Canadian Grand Prix, when you get both cars finishing in the points the way they did, after all the effort and the work that went into that first car and that first season, where there were just only a handful of us developing the car and working in the team at the time. There's probably 30 something people in the whole team, and for them to come in, both of them in the points like they did, was such a massive thrill. It's a day I'll never forget. So I think that has to be the high of the career. So I know it was a long time ago, but I think it's the one that sticks in my memory the most.
And finally, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self if you could?
First of all, don't worry. It's going to be okay. And go with your passion. What you enjoy doing, go do it, because that's what we look for when we look at people coming through the door. We look for the passion in people. And I think if you show that in anything you do, if you have a passion for it, you're going to excel. You're going to do well. And I think it makes for a really, really good work-life balance if what you do during the day is something you really enjoy doing. And I think with that, you can't go wrong.
Lovely stuff. Andrew, thank you so much for your time, for your memories, for
Pleasure.
your advice for everybody as well. We wish you the best of luck with the rest of the season. And in what is a very strange year, we hope there are some more strange results on the way that can see you celebrating like you did back in Canada.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.